And a very, very warm welcome to you to the Fanatec GT World Challenge Asia, powered by AWS. This is round 5 of the championship for 2023, the second of 2 races at the Okayama International Circuit. And for the first time this weekend, we've separated the GT4s and the GT3. They get their own race, and I think it's something we'll build on for next year. So let's take a look back at a piece of history, yesterday's first ever GT4 race here at Okayama International Circuit. Nice and tidy at the start. Number 50 BMW getting off from pole position. The D-Station Racing Aston Martin alongside. And the Toyotas sitting in 3rd and 4th positions. The McLaren tucked in 5th. Then the Porsche Cayman in 6th, and making it 6 makes of cars in the top 7 positions. In fact, all 7 cars in the race is the bright pink Mercedes in the background. But with every lap, we had the great escape being mounted by Masaki Kano, pulling ever further clear. The Porsche Cayman with Sho Kobayashi was making up places, and then it came to be the time of the pit stops. This is the pit stop for the car that would go on to win. They thought they were heading for 2nd place, but the number 39 car was handed over from Haridama Manopo to Seita Nonaka, making good progress. Picked off the 2nd of the Aston Martin drivers. That was in the D-Station car, Kenji Hama being passed, but it was all in the bag. Surely 30 seconds and more to the good. The number 50 BMW stroking it home. Great start to the race by Masaki Kano. Manabu Arido did not have the best end of the race, because here he is with 2 corners to go. Only 1 corner to go now. He's freewheeling down the hill. Painful to watch for the crew in the pit lane. Masaki Kano can do nothing. Could it get enough momentum to get to the finish line? No, it couldn't. It was only at the back end of the grid. It came to standstill, sweeping through from the outside came Seita Nonaka to take victory for Toyota, and any second now Akilan Racing's Toyota will come through, but the BMW at a standstill, driver getting out. Masaki Kano can hardly bear to watch, but Manabu Arido, well, he doesn't need to go to the gym for a while. He pushed it to the finish, but victory, the first GT4 victory in an all GT4 race, went to Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia. Congratulations to Haridama Manopo and Seita Nonaka. They made a little bit of history. What a cruel finish that was yesterday for Max Arido. But let's go down. We've been looking at car 50 being pushed across the line. Let's go down, because Amy Izawa is with car number 50, the BMW.
arido選手、昨日は、GT4 開幕戦ですね、このスタンダローンレースで、歴史に名を刻んだと思うんですけれども、お体大丈夫です。
本当に今日が非常に大事なレースになるんで、今日ね最低でも2位以上にゴールしてね、チャンピオン決めたいなと思ってます。はい。
決して DNF にはなれないレースと思ってます。燃料は十分積んでますでしょうか。
大丈夫です、大丈夫、問題ないです。はい、
それでは最後に意気込みを教えてください。
いやもうとにかく今日は昨日のね悔しさをバネに思いっきりレースしてね、チームとみんなに最高のこうね岡山ラウンドにしたいなと思ってますんで、ぜひ応援お願いします。
頑張ってください。加納選手も頑張ってください。So yes, today is a very important race for those two. Looking forward to the Japan Cup as well. And I asked whether they have enough fuel in the car, and he said yes, we are good to go. And they need to finish. I think in P2, I guess. So yes, they need the points. So he is very looking forward to a great race. Tries not to do some crazy stuff, and yeah, hopefully they get what they're looking for. Back to you.
Thank you, Amy. And my maths has them needing to definitely finish 4th, so they should manage to do that. But anyhow, the driver that started yesterday will be the driver who finishes today. So it'll be Masaki Kano, if they run short of fuel, who has to do the push to the finish. And that footage of Max Arido yesterday pushing it to the finish line has absolutely gone viral. At first, I thought they were just toying with that 35-second advantage to cruise around the final corner and win the race of the championship with great glissade. But let's go back down to the grid, because car 718 has always been in the championship. They're running 2nd at the moment. It's Czech Shop Caymania Racing, and Amy is right with them, and they're Cayman.
小林選手、チャンピオンシップですね、考えて正真正銘、今日が勝負時となっております、はい、どんなレース期待しますか。
13ポイント差、かなり普通に考えたら厳しいと思うんですが、最後まで諦めず、常識を打ち破ってきたのがうちのチームかなと思っているので、はい、最後まで諦めず頑張りたいと思います。
オーナーは緊張されてましたか。
社長緊張してる？緊張してないです。いけると思います。
わかりました。では頑張ってください。
頑張ります。
頑張ってください。はい。So yeah, they mentioned the 13-point difference is quite not easy to overcome, but they will try their best, and then we'll see what happens. Also, the driver doesn't look very nervous, as you can see. So let's hope for a great race.
Thank you, Amy. First we heard from Sho Kobayashi, and then one of our favourite characters in the entire championship, Naohiko Otsuka. He is a driver who's racing for fun, and they've been going better and better. Now, if you weren't watching yesterday, in fact, you've been watching at all in 2023 in terms of GT4 across Asia, you will not have seen one of these. Car number 27, the first McLaren Artura to race in Asia. They got hold of it, Kref Motorsport, just 1 week ago, and it was going better and better through yesterday's race. And it came home in that surprise third place. But Amy has moved across to talk to Kref Motorsport with the McLaren crew. Miss Yuko Suzuki and Masataka Inoue are the two drivers.
優子選手、昨日もデビューレースで表彰台乗りましたけど、マシンの、ね、調子良さそうですね。
いやー、実はそうでもないんですよ。はい、いろいろ抱えながら走ってましたけれども、最終的に完走するといいことがあるんだなっていう本当になんか申し訳ない気持ちがありつつも、でも乗らせていただいて本当に感謝です。
いや、今日もいいレース期待してますんで頑張ってください。
ありがとうございます。
ありがとうございます。So apparently they did have some issues yesterday while driving, but however, since they got on the podium, she said that there is something good when you try to push to the very last minute. So she was very happy about it, and hopefully that they don't have issues today. Back to you.
Thank you, Amy. So that was Yuko Suzuki, who's sharing with Masataka Inoue. They started the season in a 720S, which is a GT3 McLaren, but they have been really, really impressed. And yesterday, Yuko could not stop saying, I love McLaren, because this is a very, very nimble car, the McLaren Artura. But we've got the two Toyotas on front row, the two cars that thought they would kind of come home second and third yesterday. 39 took victory for Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia, and 71 Akiland Racing, the white, yellow and black version, on pole position, thanks to a brilliant lap from Kazuki, I beg your pardon, for Ryohei Sakaguchi. It's great to have them back. They were with us at the start of the season. They missed a race or two, but they're back. And these Toyota Supras look very, very nimble. But may I say, a lot of these cars are Silver AM driver lineups, and the silver drivers, the more experienced ones with higher rankings, were the ones who did the qualifying for race number 2. And the top 4 cars are very, very close in terms of time. So I think the first half of maybe 60% of this race could be all about these silver drivers really pressing on. Looking back to the second row, you can see there's a car that we haven't had before, car 83. It's very pink, very metallic. Comet Racing, who won GT3 AM class of the Japan Cup, they're doubling up, and they've got this bright pink Mercedes, and certainly Kazuki Oki made that go very, very well indeed in qualifying. So he's starting 4th. On pole position, though, it's Akiland Racing with their Toyota. Ryohei Sakaguchi really, really liked the handling of the car and used it to very good effect yesterday morning for qualifying. So the 1-minute board about to be shown, and then the cars will set off on their formation lap. And then just exactly as the larger brethren in the GT3 category, the race will be for 1 hour with the driver change, somewhere between 25 and 35 minutes into this race. So the field is small. It's the first time we've had it, but for next year, Benjamin Franisovici, who puts the whole show together, reckons we will at least double this grid and maybe go up towards 20. A lot of the teams in the GT3 paddock are going, well, if we've got a separate race, we could run a car in that as well. So just see this as a little opening page, the opening stanza, if you will, of the history of GT4 racing in Japan and Southeast Asia. It is coming. The demand is there. A couple more cars might have been here for this historical weekend for GT4, but logistical problems got in the way, as logistical problems often can. But 7 cars, it's a start, and certainly there was some really enthralling racing yesterday, but we couldn't have factored in the peculiar, unfortunate, achingly unlucky finish for the number 50 crew. YZ Racing with BMW M-Team Studi. Max Arino was the driver who had the unwanted workout, but the hero's welcome he got, having pushed his car from the back of the grid, pretty much where that shadow is running across the track, from there to the finish line, after already doing more than half an hour of racing in very hot and humid conditions. It was tough. So off we go, the formation lap for the second ever race of GT4 in Japan, in the Japan Cup, as part of the Fanatec GT World Challenge Asia, powered by AWS. 7 cars, the field may be small, but it's diverse. We have 6 manufacturers across those 7 entries. The 2 Toyotas on the front row, then every other car to the tail of the grid is from a different manufacturer, with Aston Martin bringing up the rear. So let's take a look at the grid. It's Akiland Racing on pole by a tiny margin. That's Ryohei Sakaguchi ahead of Seita Nonaka. And then Masataka Inoue, who really got that brand new McLaren to sing, in 3rd. And Kazuki Oki in the bright pink Comet Racing Mercedes. He will start 4th. They're all Silver AM runners. There are 5 Silver AM and 2 AM runners in GT4. And the 5th of the Silver AM runners is Max Cerrido. He has recovered from shoving the car to the line. Then Naohiko Otsuka in the Czech shop Kamania Racing Porsche Cayman. He's the leading AM driver, ahead of Kenji Hama, brand new D-Station Racing baby Aston Martin. Of course, they run Advantage GT3 in the GT3 category, but great to see them spreading their wings. Now, if this is the first ever time you've seen a race at the Okayama International, it's a 13-turn circuit. Looking now at the run from turn 6 over a crest down to turn 7. Cars just going through there now. Very tight right-hander with lightly banked exit. Then immediately the track levels out and then dives, much steeper than it looks actually, into turn 8. Drivers use a lot of curb on the right-hand side of the circuit. A 9 is tight too, but they want to carry what momentum they can. Go over the curbs a little bit, if you will. Uphill straight, they're running behind the Lexus safety car into turn 10. Continues to be uphill. This is about 130, 140 degree uphill turn. You can see it keeps on turning and feeds almost immediately into 3 corners from the end. Turn 11, here we are. It's a right-hander, quite tight, waiting to put the power on, waiting. We're riding on board the Comet Mercedes. Then this short downhill straight now, the field bunching up. They want the cars to be 2 by 2. The final 2 corners, both right-handers, both downhill, and both very narrow indeed, very tight. So the cars will come 2 by 2. It will be Ryohei Sakaguchi and in car 39, Seita Nonaka alongside for the Toyota Racing crew from Indonesia. Looking to the lights on the gantry. The 5 lights are red. When they go green, we're going racing. And I reckon the first half of this race is going to be very, very tight indeed. Which Toyota will it be that's first down into the opening corner? Long hold. Anyone else can make a challenge? The Mercedes having a little think, but it looks as though Sakaguchi has got exactly the right thing. The McLaren has got quite close to the second place Toyota, but it's Toyota first and second as they were on the grid. In fact, I think grid order has been maintained, but perhaps the first move is going to come from the number 50 BMW. Had its nose chopped off. The car that should clinch the championship at this, the final round. But you could just see there, Manabu Arido, who brought it home yesterday, is leading off, and he's been cautious, but now a sudden move. Challenge for the lead into turn 6, so that was good speed carried through the S's from the number 39, and that was very positive indeed from Seita Nonaka. Side by side they go. The McLaren's looking very sleek. That's getting good speed out of the hairpin. Along the straight, he can now get a tow. The Toyotas are side by side, but number 39 is on the inside line. That's where you need to be to turn into the hairpin. Still grid order, but it's very close, as I sensed it might be, with the silver drivers in the opening stint of the race, tails swinging around. On the McLaren there, Masataka Inoue hanging on to that. He's in third place. So we do have the change. It was made into turn 7, so clearly a better run into turn 6 gave the lead to the 39 ahead of 71. So Akiland Racing goes backwards. Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia comes forward. And yesterday's race winner gaining a 2-car length lead as they turn into turn 11. Only car dropping away from any of its rivals is the car in last place, just behind the Cayman that was kicking up the dust there out of turn 11. Here's the D-Station Racing Aston Martin kicking off today's race, number 48, with Kenji Hama at the wheel. Tidy first lap. The car that started on pole is back in second, but thereafter it is all in the original order. Oh, the McLaren having a look down the inside. Masataka Inoue seeing if he can have a go at Ryohei Sakaguchi into the first corner. And a challenge there on the Mercedes for Comet Racing. Got a little bit skitterish down into turn 2. A little bit of braking is required into there, and he's lost out. That was very positive driving from Max Cerrido. Now we're riding on board the 83 Comet Racing Mercedes. Just lost the position there in the hands of Kazuki Oki. You can see the BMW hasn't quite got enough heat in its tyres. Didn't want to turn in at the entry to the hairpin. It's about how we get the power down. You go over a slight rise. And in fact, the closest car to arrival is the McLaren in third place. Will the driver be brave enough to have a look up the inside of Ryohei Sakaguchi into the hairpin? No, but certainly Masataka Inoue in the almost virgin white car is pressing on very nicely in that McLaren, learning as he goes. The team didn't get a chance to test until the testing started. They had some mechanical issues, but they've got those sorted. So every lap is an exploration for the McLaren. And at the moment, car 39, the car that took a surprise victory yesterday afternoon, Seita Nonaka, is just gradually edging clear. Those Toyotas have a really lovely engine note, the Supra GT4 motor. Drivers being very neat and tidy through turns 12 and 13. You have to hear a lot of them, just you can hear off the TV cameras sometimes a clattering sound. That's if they've dropped their wheels just over the curbing on the outside, where you can see the red line. Do not want to dip into gravel. It has a habit of sort of sucking the cars off the track once you dip a wheel in. It's a point of least resistance. So just under 1.2 seconds is the margin at the end of 2 racing laps. Top 5 cars covered by just 3 seconds. Just 5 seconds back to the final car in the pack. So we've got the 5 silver AM runners and then the 2 AM runners at the back of the field. The Aston Martin just falling away a little bit at the tail. But again, a lot of these cars, news to these teams, but certainly for the BMW car number 50, that's been running all season with us. The BMW M4 GT4 came out a couple of years ago. And you know what, just a few laps ago, we had the McLaren number 27 starting to try and hunt the 71. That's the second of the Toyotas, the Akiland Racing example. So in turn, he too is now being hunted. And I really sense that Max Arino, having got past the bright pink Mercedes from Comet Racing, has now got the pace, they've got the experience, they've got brilliant setup on this car developed through the course of this season. So his driver's instinct would be saying, overtake, overtake, overtake right now, come on, show you can do it. We've had a good season already, so many class wins, but he's got that thing in the back of his mind, the angel on the other shoulder saying, hold on, yesterday you thought you'd win the Japan Cup element of GT4, today you can, but a little caution. But as we know, they were 35 seconds to the good going on to the final lap of the race. All fine until going between turns 11 and 12. 2 of the last 3 corners, suddenly there was no acceleration out of turn 11 and was picked up by the cameras and he was trickling home. But it actually came to a standstill, had to push it down the start-finish straight. What drama. But what a way of making your racing team go viral, particularly around Southeast Asia. So many comments. 1.8 seconds is now the margin. Seita Nonaka pulling clear for Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia. And Akiland Racing, Ryohei Sakaguchi having to work very, very hard indeed. The McLaren in behind, Masataka Inoue on the attack. And I think in the next couple of laps we'll see Manabu Arido in the BMW getting right onto his tail. Let's take a look. Over the crest, out of the hairpin at turn 6. Even the Comet Racing Mercedes is getting a little bit of a tow. Then a tiny bit of brake back to the car in 6th place overall. The car that's leading the GT4 AM class, and that is the ever-friendly Nehiko Otsuka in Czech Shop K-Mania Racing's Cayman 718. And in the background, but falling away now about, let me see, at least a couple of seconds further back is the car in last place, the D-Station Racing Baby Aston Martin. There it is. Very dark livery with the green flashes in 7th place overall. And then a mistake going to turn number 10, running just on a peculiar, very, very wide line. I think outbraked himself was McLaren driver Masataka Inoue. So that gets the pressure off the tail of Sakaguchi, but it means the BMW is having a little think, you're not going to sweep around the outside there, Max. That was the very point that your misery started yesterday. But he's side by side, though. He thought, surely the better of it. Wide over the curbs on the exit, and maybe about to make a move as well is Kazuki Aiki in the background. Oki having a look one side of the McLaren and the other. The BMW surely has got the deal done into turn 1, but he's being hung out there. Is he hung out to dry? Has he got enough momentum to go all the way around the outside? Yes, he has. And down the inside, oh dear, one little slip up at turn 10. And by turn 2 at the next lap, that's 2 places lost for the Kreft Motorsport McLaren. Can he get them back? One little mistake, maybe braking 2 or 3 meters too late, too deep into turn number 10. Couldn't get the power down and the damage was done, and certainly with the BMW going around the outside and braving it out to get the better entry to the start finish straight, that was the undoing. Now with that shuffling of the pack, I sense, what's the advantage first to second? 2.23 seconds, gone out to 2.4 by the first timing sector. I'm sensing that we're going to have a bit of a closing up at the front. I think Ryohei Sakaguchi has got some power in, some performance in hand. He's going to have to keep a move on because the BMW is coming after him now, but the Toyota in second place. is looking pretty handy. And as I say, that the best lap of the race was set a few laps ago by the race leader, Seita Nonaka. That was the previous lap. The fastest lap he did was a 1 minute 37.4, which actually is about 6/10 faster than anyone else. In the AM class, GT4 AM, we heard from Sho Kobayashi on the grid. We saw Mehiko Tsuka wanting to join in. He already had his balaclava on to put his helmet on to get into the car, but always keen to have a word. And K-Mania Racing, you can see in the background the penultimate car, the two AM cars at the back, the yellow, the white and blue Cayman, and then the very dark green and sort of emerald green piping of the Aston Martin in the back of the pack. The pace really starting to pick up. Last time around, the best laps for respective cars. 71, the Akilan Racing Toyota did their best lap last time around. Likewise, Manabu Warido, there he is in the number 50 BMW. Leaving the car in last place, Kenji Hama did his best lap last time around. And the difference between the race leader's best lap and the slowest of the best laps is 1.5 seconds. And in fact, it's interesting, Kenji Hama last time around took a chunk of time out of Nehiko Tsuka in the GT4 AM battle, so that's closing up a bit. In fact, it's down to under 1.5 seconds, so the Aston Martin is finding its form at the back of the pack. That's good news. 10 seconds cover all the cars in the field after 5, nearly 6 laps. What I'd like to see at this point in the race is whether there's any fight back from the number 27 Kref Motorsport McLaren after that mistake. Look, the D-Station Racing Aston Martin, maybe just a bit cautious at the start of the race, but at this point is now starting to reel in the K-Mania Racing Cayman right in front of him. It's the battle for 6th, indeed, the penultimate position. They don't know either wants to be last, but it's also the battle for GT4 AM. It's a class battle. Everyone has something to fight for. Does look fabulous, the Vantage in that race livery, I must say. Dark metallic green with the emerald green piping. Right, another lap on the board. The gap between first and second between the two Toyotas is 2.268 seconds. And a 1/10 of a second gained by the Akilan Racing Toyota, the one in second place overall. D-Station Racing Aston Martin under a second now in arrears of Otsuka in the battle for GT4 AM. You don't need a stopwatch, you can just see how much closer the Aston Martin is getting. So it will be a game, and of course, if you're new to GT racing, GT sprints in all the SRO series, the GT World Challenge, they're 1 hour races with a pit stop between 25 minutes into the race and 35 minutes. So you can pit another time, but you'll be penalised accordingly. So the K-Mania Racing Porsche that came on in leaps and bounds at the previous round at Motegi 3 weekends ago has looked much better on its tyres, but I don't think the performance advantage it found there has quite remained, because it was up there challenging the number 50 BMW for an awful lot of that race meeting, and this weekend just cannot get close to it, but at least has a class battle of its own. And all the drivers were saying, you know, we love being part of the Fanatec GT World Challenge Asia, but separating our cars from the GT4s mean we can concentrate on our racing rather than having to keep out of the way a lot of the time with the larger, faster, more aerodynamic GT3 cousins, if you like. So it's been a real success there. Interesting, though, how hard our race leader is pressing, because the gap for Seita Nonaka to the second place, number 71 Toyota, is coming down all the time. It's still at just around 2.25 seconds, but we saw our race leader hooking his wheel into the gravel on the exit of turn 13, and as I said a little bit earlier, if you put your wheel in there, your car will be fired off the circuit, or you'll have to come off for power, and then you'll lose it the whole way down the straight. So a little bit of a wake up there for our race leader, Seita Nonaka. Again, every lap on a racing circuit in terms of timing sectors is split into 3. They're not always of the same length, but the first part of the lap, every single lap, there's an advantage gained in sector 1, which is only about 20 seconds long. Basically, it takes you down through turns 1 and 2, goes through the S's, and every time our race leader's a little bit quicker there for Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia. There he is with the red nose in his car, taking a marginally different line, giving chase down the slope between turns 8 and 9. Goes Sakaguchi, and he's got to concentrate. He's only just under a second clear. The car in 4th place is this one. We're riding on board with the Comet Racing Mercedes, you can't miss this day or night. It's metallic pink and very, very bright indeed. And certainly Kazuki Oki's enjoying his run in this. As I say, the first 5 cars are silver AM entries, so they have an AM driver and a higher ranked driver. And the higher ranked drivers start today's race, and they will stand as long as they can to try and keep their performance up, relative, get the most out of the Pro effectively before handing over to the AMs. And the pit window can open in another just over 11.5 minutes from now, but these drivers will stay out a fair bit longer, maybe another 20 minutes from now before they think of coming in towards the end of the pit window being open. It's open for 10 minutes. Looking to see who may be picking up gains in terms of performance. Well, we know the last 2 laps have been very, very good for D-Station Racing, and there's the proof. They were probably 2 and a bit seconds away at the back of the field, maybe slightly more than that. And then every lap for about the past 4 laps, there's been an attack from Kenji Hama. Now he's really, really putting pressure on Naohiko Otsuka, who will relish this challenge, but that's what GT racing is all about. Different manufacturers, different cars, and their performance is balanced as well as the championship organisers can do. But I don't think there's very much that Otsuka can do. Now, I will go one way, just pretending it's a feint, but tucking back in line, you've got to be very, very lucky to get an overtaking manoeuvre done into the turn 7 hairpin. And then you've got to bide your time down the drop at 8. A lot of drivers getting pinged for going too far over the curbs at turn 8. Down the drop into 9. Now the track starts to rise just a little bit. We've seen quite a few people taking a dive up the inside into the next corner, turn 10, being considered by Kenji Hama there. But often in response, what is just about to happen, or nearly happened, the driver in front is so busy looking in his mirrors, brakes too late. But Otsuka did just enough to block off any challenges up into turn 11. Now he's going to have to be very, very careful at the end of the start-finish straight. It's a long straight, it starts to dip. You can just see the McLaren turning into turn 1 and declaring his intention very early indeed. Kenji Hama came out of the slipstream probably a little bit too early, but right now he's doing that little game racing drivers play, feinting one way, looking the other, just trying to unsettle the driver in front of them. And in fact, Otsuka, I think, was looking in his mirrors a little too much, braked a little bit late, had to go very deep into turn 1, but managed to get the car hauled back across the right to get back in line for turn 2, 3 and 4. We've had a couple of cars trying to go side by side through the S's. Very difficult indeed. Look at Otsuka. You're not coming up the inside, he said. It's not enormously wide, but I sense he won't get such a good exit from the corner. The Aston Martin should have more punch out of that uphill hairpin. Now he's going to use the slipstream down the straight. There's a kink to the right. Now he gets the kink to the left as far as the drivers are concerned. But Otsuka's just got enough performance to still be ahead into the hairpin. Brakes on the tightest line he possibly can, but in fact the Aston Martin braked a little bit earlier, decided it wasn't worth making a lunge this time around. But a great battle. So whatever happens up in the Silver AM class is of little issue to them. They've rather fallen off the tail of that, nearly 10 seconds back. They probably are 10 seconds back now because of the delay. In fact, there you have it, the best part of 10 seconds back from 5th place, which is the McLaren. But they have their own class battle to consider. So GT4 AM, great fun. What's happened in the last couple of laps is, well, there we have Sho Kobayashi watching his teammate hanging on in the K-Mania Porsche, the 718, and not doing what I said you don't want to do, dipping your wheels over the curb on the outside of the final corner, overcorrecting, came off the power bit. I think that was part of the moment that the car's dynamics changed, and no second invitation needed there for Kenji Hama. So just that very moment we saw Sho Kobayashi looking at the screen. What he saw on the monitor in the pit garage was a horror film as far as he was concerned, because a class lead went away. But that was a good save from Naohiko Otsuka. I did think for a second he might be spinning onto the start-finish straight. As they sometimes say in the movies, meanwhile up front, first and second, and now let's take a look. Just a little bit too deep. It's so easy to go so deep into the corners, and in fact, you know what? It was almost an overcorrection. The fear of going into the gravel just changed the moment for that car, and it was a good save by Otsuka. That could have been a rotation, could have taken out both of the cars in the GT4 AM class, but won't have helped the tyres, won't have helped his heartbeat, his heart rate. Now, this is the battle for second place. Our race leader Seita Nonako in the red, white and black Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia Supra has pulled clear the second Supra from Akaland Racing. Now, driver at the wheel of that, Ryohei Sakaguchi, has suddenly got a lot more pressure from Manabu Arido. BMW closing in all the time. The Comet Racing Mercedes comes next, and then the McLaren last. And just looking at their pace, they are so identical. Oki and Inoue, their last laps were just a thousandth of a second different. But really, the first three breaking away, and then a gap of what, 3, nearly 4 seconds back to the battle for fourth between the Mercedes in pink, just arriving at the top of the shot, and the white McLaren that, just remember, was so good at the start of the race. One little mistake at turn 11, and that let everybody get on the tail, and was demoted by the time they got to turn 2. Not once, but twice. So Manabu Arido in the number 50 BMW from Easy Racing with BMW M Team Studi. There we are, the race leader not that far ahead. In fact, as much as they're fighting, they're not really delaying each other too much. So last time around, in fact, Max Arido was the fastest driver in the race. He's the one in third. That's why he's got his BMW onto the tail of the Akaland Racing Toyota. As you can see, out of the hairpin, it's so super narrow. There's a little banking on the high part of the track there. That's not really where you want to be, but it does sort of help you get a better exit on such a tight bend. Then turn 9, so even between the Toyota and the BMW through there. Sometimes under braking, drivers make a challenge. Into this corner, turn 10, 130, 140 degrees uphill from entry to exit, and certainly towards the end of the GT3 race it became a place of great action and a few accidents as well, it must be said. So how many risks does Max Arido want to take? He's got up into third place, started 5th, but literally needs to turn up, make sure the car finishes, and the title for the Japan Cup GT4 category will go to the BMW crew, to him and his teammate Masaki Kano. Masaki watching on from the garage, probably starting to get his helmet and kit all in order, because the pit window will be open in 5 minutes from now, and do all those things that drivers do before they know their stint is coming. Yesterday, of course, he was sitting in that very chair looking rather drawn when suddenly, with 2 corners to go, he realised his car, with his teammate Max Arido on board, was no longer going very fast, and a few seconds later it was no longer going at all on the start-finish straight. Max Arido had to get out and push it almost the entire length of the pit lane in searing temperatures. He got it there, but instead of winning the race by over half a minute, it was 6th at the end of the race. Huge applause for him. Today, he'll get out of the car and sit quietly in the garage, because he's pushed hard to get from 5th to 4th, now to 3rd. He's pushing for 2nd. I don't think it's going to come his way, because Ryohei Sakaguchi has been around the block several times, not just the block here. Still having a look, but not close enough to dive up the inside of the yellow, white and black Akaland Racing Toyota, but he's still harrying, pushing very hard. Takes one of those little pretend looks up the inside, maybe next time. Again, this is one of these circuits I would love everybody to come and visit. The Okayama International Circuit, made famous not long after it opened, when it landed 2 rounds of the World Championship in the mid-1990s, 1994 and 1995. This is where the Formula 1 cars came to play, when it was known as TI Circuit, the Tanaka International Circuit. But it's beautifully situated. If there's a criticism, to drive it would be fabulous. To race, it's tricky, because you've really got to find a space to overtake. But just so spectacular. Trees surrounding, and much more gradient change than you can see. Even on TV, which famously flattens everything, there is gradient change. So that's the sweeper, the S's at turns 3 and 4, little kink at turn 5, into a bit of a compression, then it starts rising into the hairpin at turn 6. A bit, if you go walk from the bottom at turn 6 up to the top, and then to the crest in the background, the bit the Mercedes just cresting that, it's going to make your calves work. It's very steep indeed. And then braking for the hairpin, turn number 7 at the end of that infield straight, banked exit to the corner, and then that plunges away, dropping beautifully into compression, gets to turn, there is the lowest point, then it starts to rise again through turn 9, behind the pits and the paddock, under one of the entry bridges, that's from the car parks for the teams, and into this turn number 10. And certainly Ryohei Sakaguchi's got it covered off, and race leader, Seita Nonaka, will, I think, probably stay out quite a while. The pit window not open for another just over 2 minutes, then so it's open for effectively 12. 12 minutes from now, the pit window will close, but I think all these drivers are going to run past the halfway mark in the race. And certainly, depending on how equal the performance of their drivers, if there's an inequality, they will stay out as long as they possibly can. But if they're quite close in pace to their teammate, they would maybe put them in a lap or so earlier. And I think that may well be the case for Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia. Haridamo Manopo, the Indonesian driver, waiting to take it over. Yesterday, he couldn't believe his eyes when he came out the final corner of the race, thinking, oh, well, I've held on to second place. Oh, what's that? BMW stopped in the track and swept by to win. He was 35 seconds down at the start of the closing lap, the final lap, and yet through he came and grabbed that victory with great delight, the driver from Indonesia. And sitting watching on in the the paddock, looking cool, calm and collected. It's what you've got to do. So there's a driver who's not going to be getting in immediately, one feels. Some of the arms kept there. Yeah. That one. Just. So, race leader, Seita Nonaka, Haridamo Manopo waiting to take over, but I think it'll be a while yet. But that car, nearly 3.2 seconds to the good, in fact 3.2 through the last split. Neat, tidy. Car number 39, the Supra, one of the two Supras that started on the front row. 7 cars in this field, the first ever weekend in which GT World Challenge Asia has run a separate race for GT4s, and the drivers love it, and the numbers will be much more next year. But you imagine all their races up until now, they've had GT3 cars thundering past them, they've had to go offline to let them through, pick up all the rubbish on their tyres, often having to let all their momentum go, but really enjoying having the stage to themselves. And you can be sure when we do this again in 2024, there will be many more cars out on the track. But right now, Seita Nonaka got into the lead on the opening lap and has kept it there, and should hand it over to his teammate Haridamo Manopo in the lead of the race. The advantage now 3.2 seconds thereabouts, out of the hairpin, up over the rise, turn number 6. As you see, there's a little kink to the left coming up, accelerating down the back straight. At this point it is starting to descend very slightly. The second kink, here we are coming up, there's the right kink, the left kink, and all you see is a sea of gravel up ahead, braking, with no one coming up the inside. You can take a slightly wider line, run up over the slightly banked exit, which the second Toyota is taking now, still being pushed by the number 50 BMW by Max Arrido, but Ryohei Sakaguchi has got it absolutely covered, and covered without any sort of fluster. He's just putting the car where it needs to be, but it's the turn of the teammates. There's Haridamo Manopo, probably already feeling hot, having just put his helmet on. I know he comes from Indonesia, where heat and humidity is part of the parcel, but then you've got nerves as well. Can they make it 2 wins from 2? In fact, I'll tell you what, if they do that, it'll be 4 wins from 4, because they only did the opening round of the championship, where they had no competition. They were the only GT4 runners in the opening round. We started having more GT4 cars when we came to the first of the 4 races in Japan. That was at Fuji, but in the first round it was a solo run by Haridamo Manopo and Seita Nonaka. They won both the races there. They came through to that surprise win yesterday, so they could have a record of 4 wins from 4, which they'd like very much. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We've still got 33 and a half minutes remaining in this 1-hour race, but they've done a very good job so far. Seita Nonaka leading by slightly more each lap, 3.5 seconds to good now. But that again, I'd say that Ryohei Sakaguchi in the 71 Akilan Racing Toyota has done just such a good job. It's all those years of experience. He's just not being flustered. His pace isn't dropping too much. Often when you're being challenged by someone who's pushing as hard as Max Arrido is in the BMW, you take lines that really slow you down. But actually, that said, they might be losing a couple of tenths a lap at the very most. So that is a real case of a driver with plenty of maturity and experience and enough confidence in his abilities to not get flustered. But all the drivers know the pit window is open, has been open for 2 and a bit minutes. With these drivers being the pros in these Silveram driver lineups, will stay out as long as they possibly can. Because with the best will in the world, they'll be the drivers that keep the cars in the race, keep the cars going as fast as they can. Their AMS will drive as well as they can, but it's necessarily not quite as fast. So you don't want to give away any seconds advantage by just being kind to the AM, giving them as many laps as you can. In this case, it really, particularly if you're in a battle at the front, you want to keep your AM driver restricted to little more than 25 minutes in the car, which would be the bare minimum. So after 17 laps, only 4 and a bit seconds, 4.1 seconds from Seita Nonaka leading the race, the driver in third place. Now, average speed, of course, Seita Nonaka is top of that chart because he's leading this race. It's always good to see also the top speed because these cars are all balanced to have their produce theoretically an equal lap time. But of course, they can do it in different ways, and going up the inside or having a look up the inside into turn 6, well, you've got to do it because certainly Max Rito would like to hand that BMW over in second place. But already the McLaren has come in from 5th overall, and then now it'll be the turn of Miss Yuko Suzuki. We heard from her before the start of the race. She's absolutely loving this car, but this battle for second place, well, no wonder the cameras are staying focused on it. Trying the high line, trying the low line, but as I was extolling the virtues of Ryohei Sakaguchi, he's not looking like a driver who is too concerned. He knows how on this track you can keep a steady line up the middle, you'll be fine. And I do wonder if he didn't have the BMW in his tail, how much closer he'd be to the other Toyota that's leading the race, the one for Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia, because even though I think he's losing less time in the heat of this battle than he might if he was less experienced, he is still losing the odd tenth of a second here or there. 3.7 seconds is the last split. Now 4.3 seconds. Shows how the middle sector of the circuit has been rather kinder to our race leader. So still time with the pit window open for another 5 and a bit minutes. And the car that's now leading GT4 AM is the one that hasn't pitted because Naohiko Atsuka has pitted to hand over to Shoko Bayashi. And this time around, D-Station Racing bringing in Kenji Hama to hand over to Tatsuya Hoshino. I do really like it when you've got a team with such a famous livery as the one that D-Station Racing has been using for years, the 2 shades of green, when they rated across their cars in the various championships. I like that team identity. The continuity. And again, Seita Nonaka running his fastest lap of the race is about 6-7 tenths of a second faster than the pace he's running at the moment. But he's been super consistent. And actually the last lap was the first one that these two have really slightly delayed each other because the BMW was getting much closer. Max Arrido attacking Ryohei Sakaguchi. That's why the margin has suddenly gone out by a fair extent. They can still see the race leader as they come out of turn 9, then he starts turning into turn 10. And car number 27, the McLaren, has had an issue in the pits. It was handed over to Yuko Suzuki, but it's still sitting there. That should have gone a while ago. I saw that come into the pits a while back, and various waving of the hands. Right, who blinks first? And the answer is in that battle for second place, it's Manabo Arrido, travelling with more speed on his entry to the pit lane than he was yesterday at the end of the race when the car had run out of fuel and trickled down the hill and then stopped on the start-finish straight. Today, though, if it does that, that's not his concern. He's got it up to just past the halfway point in the race to hand over to his teammate. So, real blow for Masataka Inoue and the Kreft Motorsport crew and Yuko Suzuki, who've just taken over the McLaren because it spent a very long time in the pit lane and is still sitting in the pit lane. The hazard lights are flashing, but the crew that comes in, the car that had just taken the lead in the GT4 AM class, that's the D-Station Racing Aston Martin. The lollipop is up on that, but that's not got going as yet, so maybe they've got a slight problem as well, or maybe someone else has given them the hold signal. So 3 and a bit minutes remain. The 2 Toyotas that started on the front row still running in that reversed order because the positions changed on the first lap of the race, but it's Nonaka from Sakaguchi, Oki in third place behind in the Comet Racing Mercedes. All right, the D-Station Racing Aston Martin gets underway. I did certainly see a green lollipop, which is their team colour, being lifted to suggest the driver could get going some while before he did, but sad to report that the scissor door, the right-hand side scissor door on the McLaren is up. The Artura is going nowhere, no longer has the hazard lamps flashing. The door has just been closed. Does that mean the car's about to go? Yeah, it's just being fired up, the ignition being switched on. We'll see if that gets back in the race. Now, for a while, we haven't really been looking too much at the Porsche Cayman from K-Mania Racing. So that's had the pit stop, the driver change, Sho Kobayashi. But now we're coming in, the race leader into the pits with, he could have possibly squeaked one more lap in before handing over to his teammate, but maybe Harry Damo Manopo was going, come on, get on the radio, I want to get in the race. But a really good run there from second at the start. Seito Nanaka took the lead on the opening lap and just pulled that little bit clear as those behind fought. So can it be 2 wins in 2 days? Can it be 2 wins in the first ever 2 GT4 standalone races in Fanatec Asia? Isn't it typical? You sit in the pit lane for an age, having a problem mechanically, and suddenly you've got a car pull in right behind you, doesn't affect you, but right in front of you as well. The Akalan Racing Toyota now sitting in front of the Kref Motorsport McLaren, but that is still going nowhere fast. The hazard lamps are flashing, or certainly something's going on now. Tight spaces, cockpits in which to have your seatbelts tugged from this side. It's unusual to have someone coming in from the opposite side. And that's what they're doing at Toyota Gazoo Racing. On the outside, you can see Seito Nonaka. He was helping, and from the other side, some adjustment to the belts as well. Now, of course, by taking victory in yesterday's race, it's a 15-second extra pit stop. The Akalan Racing Toyota was just under 5 seconds down beforehand, 4.6 seconds down. That has an extra 10 seconds, so this should just go out, the number 71, just ahead of the number 39. Let's see if that happens. First and second on the track. With their penalties at the pit stop, that should be flipped around. The car that has an extra 5 seconds is the McLaren. That's the one sitting between them. That's not in the running anymore. So that does mean the number 50 BMW should go into the lead of this race. It absolutely should. There it is, back out on the track. It pitted a lap ahead of its rivals. And Masaki Kano should be able to come around before the others emerge from the pit lane there. 2 Toyotas still sitting there. Oh, well, he's definitely going to be ahead, because into turn 12 out of 13. Cautious line, still waiting for the new Pirelli rubber to get the heat into it. The Comet Racing Mercedes is about to nip out and could very nearly take the lead. It will not take the lead because he's still with the pit limiter on. And the Akalan Racing Toyota, as I said, he should have been ahead of the number 39 and is by a fraction of a second. That's exactly right. But what we have had is Comet Racing moving up. They'd been running in that 4th, 5th position battle. And now let's see who can get these Toyotas going the faster, the sooner. And how's that for Bold? Trying to go on the outside, but you've got no heat in your tyre whatsoever. That was Haridamo Manopo, Indonesian driver, trying to be a hero. That's one of those moments. It could have been the other word that ends in zero, but he kept it all on the island. But it was worth giving a try. Now what you can see from the Masayoshi Oyama is just being a little bit more cautious. And I'm just getting a message that number car 39 didn't change tyres. They would have had time to do that because they had the extra 15 seconds at the pit stop. Oh, I'll tell you what, if I was the team boss, I'd have put fresh rubber on it, because around here, every extra bit of grip and traction you can get is something I would grab with both hands. Akalan Racing being very careful. Oyama covering the inside line. It's very tight here. And surely into turn 9, the order will change. But when I say surely, I mean maybe, possibly, and it hasn't happened. So this is very good, robust racing. They're suddenly going to be on the tail of this Risa Oguchi ahead. So the Comet Racing Mercedes got itself up into effective 2nd position. I don't know, her lap pace is nowhere near the pace of these. Let's hope she leaves enough space for both Toyotas, which she has. So well done to Risa Oguchi there. So 3rd and 4th becomes 2nd and 3rd for the Toyotas, but the BMW should be comfortably at the head of this group. Oh, you can see these drivers desperately looking for grip, and grip not always to be found. Those tight 2 final corners. By the next time they go around, they have more heat in their tyres, and they should be absolutely fine. But Haridamo Manopo, well, if you're only off at the outside line, that's the only place you can try and do it. But it's a long way around the outside. How much grip have you got? I think he's got the job done, but was the tight line into turn 2 a compromise from which he will lose momentum? Yes, he certainly lost momentum, but he's got his nose in front before the S's at turns 3 and 4. So that is very, very impressive manoeuvre there. A lot of bravado required. And now both of them braking actually slightly too late into the hairpin and really having to almost reapply the brakes a little stronger where they wanted a bit of flow just up into the corner. But good racing there between the Toyotas. But what's the margin to our race leader? Masaki Kano should be well clear, 16 seconds. And that's what happens if you don't have an extra 15 seconds in the pit lane, I would suggest. Because, of course, if yesterday's race had run its course in the way it should have done, the championship would have been settled for Japan Cup GT4, but suddenly victory and 25 points became far less than that. The push to the line was worth it because some of the cars are not registered for points in the GT4 championship, so not all of the 7 runners take points, but it was very tricky indeed. But right now, Masaki Kano, driver on the right-hand side of the graphic, the bottom of the screen with the longer hair, is leading and leading comfortably. I'll be interested to see his race pace as well. Last lap for him, 1 minute 38.38 seconds, so that's bang on the money. And now that the Toyotas are no longer fighting with each other and Harudama Manopo kicks up the dirt on the exit of the final corner, that will cost him a momentum. Maybe the Akaland Racing Toyota can get close, but their laps, 1 minute 41s. Don't forget, another lap for them and they'll have more heat in their tyres. They should certainly, if they stop fighting with each other, get down into the 39s, 1 minute 39s, 1 minute 38s. But the fact Masaki Kano immediately gets on the pace the way he has is not good news for the Toyotas. Was there a slight mistake there from down into turn 2? It just seemed a little bit cautious from Harudama Manopo, and suddenly Akaland Racing with their Toyota looked a little bit more positive. Not enough space though as the track moved around in front of them, and the driver on the outside found there wasn't much of an outside to play with and had to back off. So let's see what can happen for Masayoshi Oyama. Akaland Racing, white, black and yellow. Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia running the white, black and red livery that Toyota Gazoo Racing have used for years all around the world in their motorsport, but particularly in the World Endurance Championship. So that looks very right indeed. Another twitch from Manopo. He's living right on the edge. So the battle between the Toyota Supras is going to fill the screens for some while, and quite rightly so. Well, there's been a problem with the McLaren in the pits, and sadly the driver who started, Masataka Inoue, is talking to Amy.
井上選手、昨日表彰台にも乗って、ね、順調かなと思ってたんですけれども、何があったのか教えていただけますか？
はい、実は昨日もちょっと僕が出るときに症状があったんですけれども、エンジンの熱が上がっちゃって、それでエンジンを守るためのセーフティーが入っちゃって、エンジンがストールするっていうことがあって、で今日もそれが起きて、今日は最終的にはもう全くエンジンがかからない状況になりました。
So the issue is that it's a little bit too hot. The engine got a little bit too hot, so the safety feature turned on that the engine did not restart. That's what happened during the pit stop. 本当にね、いい走行されてたんですけれども、どうですかこのアルトラの走りは？
まあ実際先々週に日本に来て、で何も準備ができないままレースウィークを迎えて。ただ昨日も3位表彰台、棚ぼたではあったんですけれども取れて、非常にスタートとしてはすごくいい車だなと思います。もう少しセットに詰められれば十分戦える車だと思います。来年は楽しみですね。
では来年また期待したいと思いますんで、お疲れ様でした。
はい、ありがとうございます。
So yes, I asked him about this car. How was it overall? His impression is that even though it was just 2 weeks prior to this race, they brought the car in. It did a fantastic job so far. They didn't have too much time to prepare, but somehow it ended up being a podium yesterday, and he's happy about it as well. And he's very much looking forward to next season. That's what he says. Hopefully, we see them again with this car. Back to you.
Thank you, Amy. We're all looking very much to next season, and yes, you can understand new car problems happen to absolutely everyone, but just checking the fastest lap that McLaren managed on its debut, it's right in the ballpark, so they'll go away sad they couldn't finish the second race, but I think or get the second driver in the second race, but certainly very pleased with what they have in their hands. But how many cars do you need for a motor race? Simple answer, 2. We've got 2 cars fighting very, very hard indeed over second place. They're now 23, nearly 24 seconds away from the race leader. Masaki Kano was going to come out ahead of them because there was no driver success penalty or team success penalty to be served by the number 50 BMW from Easy Racing. But that said, he's storming clear. This duo delaying each other. They're lapping at 1 minute 40, whereas our race leader was lapping last time around. Kano did a 1 minute 38.1 second lap. So 2 seconds a lap they're losing to the race leader. But they're the entertainers. Haridama Manopo, the Indonesian driver in the number 39 Supra, and in behind, pushing all the time, car number 71. It was started by Ryohei Sakaguchi. It's now Masayoshi Oyama in the second of those Toyotas. But if there's half a door being left ajar, it's going to be taken for sure. So Akiland Racing looking to pounce. Haridama Manopo slowing himself by looking in his mirror. He's been getting a little bit loose over the curbs. A few laps ago we saw him dip his wheel on the gravel coming onto the start-finish straight. That cost him momentum. This time around he had probably a few wheel widths less travelled towards the gravel trap, and that was far more sensible. So I think smoothing out his cornering is helping the driver in second place. Maybe he's now becoming accustomed to the pressure from Oyama and the Akiland Racing Toyota sitting right on his tail. And in fact, the driver in fourth place, the driver leading the GT4 AM class, is catching them, but has to gain another 15 seconds. It's a D-Station Racing Aston Martin, and certainly Tatsuya Hoshino is going very nicely in that. Car 718 is the other car in the GT4 AM class, but that is some distance further back and lapping a second a lap, slower than our race leader. Now, Comet Racing Mercedes should not be coming into the pit lane unless it's serving what it is serving, a short pit stop, so a stop and go penalty. Minimum pit stop time must be observed. And even if you're a second short, you lose far more than a second if you have a stop and go. You stop for the time under which you undercut the total. 1 second by looks things, 2 seconds. The cone's removed. So by saving 2 seconds, it's cost them all that time. And it's going to put them a full lap down. There is our race leader, the number 50 BMW coming through. So a learning element for Comet Racing. Some of the very best teams in GT and sports car racing make these mistakes. But when you've got a minimum pit stop, just do not undercut it. You know, many of the time, particularly on circuits with much longer pit in, pit lane and pit out, you can lose 40 seconds, and to shave half a second off your pit stop and then be hit by something of that magnitude clearly throws your race right out of the window. But yesterday was the day that the BMW that we see now, car number 50, thought they might wrap up the Japan Cup GT4 title. They've got just under a quarter of an hour remaining, but importantly, leading the race by 27 seconds. Hold on a second. Yesterday they were leading by 35 seconds, and that was going on to the final lap. That was the first 3/4 of the final lap. I guess the fuel low warning light was coming on some time before that, but for Manabu Arida, he thought, he prayed, he hoped he could get that home. It didn't happen. 6th to the line, and that was with the driver getting out and pushing the car to the finish of the race. But Amy is very busy. I talk about car number 50, and Amy has gone up to join them, and she is with Manabu Arido.
選手、なかなかやっぱこのサーキットは抜きにくいサーキットかと思うんですけれども、どうでしたか？
いや僕のパートは前のスープラ2台についていけば離さなければなんとかなると思ってたんで、いい展開だと思います。
作戦通りと言いますか、現在トップ独占中で、もうチャンピオンに向けてまっしぐらな状況です。
いやまだほらここから何があるかわからないので、きっちりチェックを受けるまではちょっともう喜ばないようにしようと思ってます。
トラウマになってはいないですかね。
いや若干なるよねやっぱね。
でも最後の最後までね、加納選手を応援していきたいと思いますんで。
ありがとうございます。
そこお疲れ様でした。So yes, well, he will cross his finger until the very last minute because he knows that you never know what happens until the last second. So he keeps his fingers crossed, I guess. And yeah, we'll see where they end up on the podium. Back to you.
Amy, thank you very much for that. And yeah, still being philosophical. Max Arido there, real name Manabu, but races as a Max. But that car is going with metronomic pace, as you'd expect. Very experienced pair. Masaki Kano at the wheel. He's regularly lapping in the low 1 minute 38 second fact, the only other driver getting close to that pace, having just dropped the battle for second place, Haridama Manopo. I said he was calming down, his lines are getting better. He's doing 1 minute, just under 1 minute 40, so losing nearly 2 seconds a lap. Oh, do you want to take a risk? Can you be sure the race leader? Oh, okay, the indicator was on. That's good driving from Sho Kobayashi. He wanted to let BMW driver know that his Porsche Cayman was going to stay out of the way, so he did as the drivers are instructed. If you want to indicate which way you're going, put that indicator on. That's exactly what he did. So our race leader's coming through. This lap won't be quite as fast as the previous ones because he had to just wait a little bit. Well, he only lost half a second to his previous lap pace, so that would be another lap in which he extends his advantage over Haridama Manopo in second place. So how big is the gap going to be? Still waiting for Manopo to even come onto the start-finish straight as the BMW goes down through turn 2, up through the S's at turn 3 and 4. And only now is the second place Toyota onto the start-finish straight, about 2-3 seconds clear now of Okayama in the Akaland Racing Toyota. The D-Station Racing Aston Martin car number 48 is leading GT4 AM. And I must say, Tatsuya Hoshino's been looking very smooth in that. In fact, his last lap was the second fastest lap of any of the cars out on the circuit. So D-Station Racing clearly have got a good setup on that, and Hoshino going very nicely indeed. And the D-Station Racing number 48 Aston Martin, Kenji Hama did the opening stint of the race. And their advantage over the other car in GT4 AM is quite sizable. Really quite sizable. Don't forget, this car started last and it took a while. It was falling away from the pack, but then Kenji Hama seemed to just bring it up to speed, got on the tail, got past. Quite understandable for a lot of these cars, still new to teams, and just working out where the performance comes in a 25-minute, 35-minute run in a car. What point are your Pirellis going to be at their very best? How hard do you go early on to give yourself life all the way through the stint? It's all about optimizing. Well, talking D-Station Racing, Kenji Hama was the driver who kicked it off, number 48 Vantage in GT4, and Amy is catching up with Kenji.
ハマ選手ご自身のスティント、隙をつきましたね。素晴らしいオーバーテイクでした。
ちょっとミス、藤井選手が無線でミスするまで、ポルシェがミスするまでちょっとステイでゆっくり行ってくれって言われてたんで、落ち着いていけました。
素晴らしいオーバーテイクでした。この先どうでしょう。レースどのような運びを期待しますか。今
星野選手がですね、前のスープラをだいぶ詰めていただいてるんで、期待して最後まで期待しながら応援してます。見守りましょう。そこお疲れ様でした。ありがとうございます。
So in his stint, when he did the overtake, he got the radio from Fuji saying that please just wait for a mistake. There might be a slight mistake the 718 car might do in front of him. So he was calm and just waited for the one swing at the last corner, and then he took the overtake. So he's very happy about it. And at the moment, as you can see on screen, the car is doing quite well. Hoshino is doing a great job so far. Getting closer to the Supra, so he will cross his fingers until the very end. Back to you.
Thank you, Amy. Yes, in fact, even during that interview, the gap to the second of the Supras, the 71 entry, the Supra from Akaland Racing, now only 8.1 seconds clear. So consistent lapping from Hoshino and sort of less consistent lapping from Okayama, who really, had that great battle at the start of this second stint with the other Toyota, the number 39 that's holding down second place, but he's fallen away a little bit. There now, you can see the Akaland Toyota. He's only a handful, 3.5 seconds down on Haridama Manopo, so still in the hunt for second place, but in clear track, Manopo's been a little bit quicker. Last time around, though, a third of a second gained by this driver, but in the background, catching the pair of them. Only when we get the long shot on the start-finish straight, maybe as the cars get down towards turn 1, we'll have a long enough shot to see where the Aston Martin is in the background in 4th place overall. So, yeah, just see it halfway down the start-finish straight. So the gap is down to 6.3 seconds. So it's coming down. So too is the clock. 7 minutes and 45 seconds remain in this race. Will it be enough for Okayama to hang on? Or will it be enough for the charging Hoshino, Tatsuya Hoshino, to catch him. I think Hoshino won't quite do. You can just at the top of the screen catch the dark green Aston Martin. Closing in, it may be, but I don't think he'll have enough time. The clock will run down to the end of an hour. And I think Akadan Racing should be safe in third place. I think equally, Haridamo Manopo, look at him now, car number 39 for Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia, should just about have enough in hand because the pendulum has swung his way. Now maybe he's taken too much out of his tyres, in fact taking a bit more out of them going out of turn 7, having to adjust his line. Surely there's enough in hand. He certainly pushed very hard and suddenly had a couple of good laps. 1, 2, 3, yep, it's about 3 seconds. Gap between second and third. The car in third is the 71 Toyota. The car in fourth is that number 48 Aston Martin. Lights flashing. He wants Risa Oguchi to take a wide enough line, but it's quite hard for her at turn 11 because suddenly at turn 10 you have to cut across and turn into turn 11 at some point, but good use of the mirrors there by Oguchi. She stayed very nicely out of the way. Now let's take a look. The Aston Martin will be getting smaller in front of her, pulling away from that Mercedes. Brilliant livery. Absolutely stands out in that bright metallic pink. Oh, dearie me. Sometimes the driver's attention just goes. Tatsuya Hoshino nearly threw away all of his good work. 5 seconds. On that last lap, he's hauled the gap down to just 5 seconds on the car in front of him. He took 1.25 seconds out of it, but we've got 6 minutes flat remaining on the clock. I don't think he's going to have enough time. And suddenly a much better lap from Haridamo Manopo. I think he made a slight mistake on the previous lap. That's why the gap to Oyama in the third place Toyota came down, but on the previous lap, but it's back out now to 4 seconds, the gap between second and third. The gap between first and second, though, 38 seconds. So, oh, well, that's even larger than it was at the start of the last lap yesterday. But we know what happened then. The number 50 BMW pulled to a halt on the start-finish straight, had to be pushed to the finish, crossed the line in 6th rather than first. Haridamo Manopo working the wheel into turn 9. Try not to use too much beyond the curbing on the exit of 9. As you turn into 10, you can't see the exit. It's a long way round. It's vaguely uphill. Increasing out of 10, getting into position to get the widest line you can to swing that Supra into turn 11, hitting the curbs a little on the inside. Still feeling for grip, waiting to put the power down. Turn 12, you'd love to sweep through it, but you've got to be a little bit off the power because it's so narrow. Into the final corner, lots of cars have been clipping the curb on the inside, running a little bit wide. Neat, safe, tidy, getting towards the end of the race. Second place surely now is safe. Nearly 40 seconds down on the race leader, but looks like he's gained another bit of time on the car behind. Yeah, second gain. It's down to 5 seconds between Manopo and Oyama in the battle of the Toyotas. They have had some good moments really close together, but towards the end of the race, Manopo has had just a little bit more pace than Oyama. There goes Oyama. Down to turn 2, swing through there. Into those wonderful S's, turn 3 and 4. Very, very quick indeed. Little kink to the left at turn 5, just gone through that, and then you're just choosing your line. How much closer is the Aston Martin? 3.6 seconds. Certainly Tatsuya Hoshino has got a target to get to, but he's only got 4 minutes remaining in which to try and force his way past onto an overall podium. He's going to be on the podium anyhow as the winner, surely, of GT4 AM. Well, hold on, is there a question mark? Is he registered for that? I think actually he's not registered for it. He's running in the class, so I think see how that one shapes out. Otherwise, the victory in that class would go to K-Mania Racing with the number 718 Porsche 718, the Cayman. Oh, the gap's coming down all the time. I think the clock may just defeat Hoshino, but Tatsuya keeps pushing on, a little bit over the curbing at turn 9 in the D-Station Racing Aston Martin, the GT4 AM class leader here. Into turn 11, a 10th here, a 10th there. An important thing for him every time he gets onto the start-finish straight. The tail of that Toyota is getting closer. I don't think he's going to do it. Race leader Masaki Kano for Easy Racing with BMW M Team Studio, the BMW M4 GT4, the leading car in this 7-car field of GT4s. This is an experimental race, but the response from the teams, notably the response from the drivers, is they want to do it again next year at every round. Get the numbers increased for GT4 runners and certainly the teams running cars in GT3 said, well, if you separate the cars into a separate race, we've got time to look after them, all the better, and there'll be more drivers wanting to come and play if they get their own race rather than having to share the track with the GT3s. But so this is a toe in the water. But look, 7 cars it may be, but 6 different manufacturers already, with other manufacturers introducing new GT4 cars every year or so. We have plenty more variety coming our way. So time left on clock, just over 2 minutes. So we'll do this lap and 1 further lap by my reckoning. Right, 2 laps to go. Masaki Kano coming through. He's going to be 43 seconds or so clear. So this one, you can coast the finish. Just to save fuel, just have enough to get the puff through the final corner onto the start-finish straight. Yesterday that didn't happen. Well, someone somewhere maybe just didn't put enough fuel in. But always at a point like that, if the car fails right at the end, you just go, please tell me it's not short on fuel. You'd almost rather go out with a mechanical problem than a human one. But the consistent pace, Masaki Kano has been metronomic. Literally every lap is a 1 minute 38.2, 38.3, 38.4 or 5. Depending if there's a bit of traffic, he maybe will lose half a second, but he's doing exactly what a pro driver should do. Well, he's a very experienced AM because he's a bronze class runner, but you know what I mean, a driver who is professional in their approach to racing. 43 seconds was the margin first to second, 6.3 between second and third, so it now seems Okayama is now looking in his rearview mirror. He's only quarter of a second, half a second clear of the Aston Martin, so Tatsuya Hoshino has got onto the tail of the car in third place, and maybe we'll have a GT4 AM runner up on the podium. Certainly Hoshino has got the Aston Martin right into the hunt. There we are. How close would you like it? What can be defended? This is the infield straight, the back straight, the highest point on the circuit, but the only way to get through at the hairpin is to go up the inside, and that's just neatly covered by Okayama. A couple of little tentative looks. There's still going to be one more go. Covered off by Okayama. Adjustment of line by Hoshino. Now, can he get a good run out of turn 9? Here they are, turning into turn 9. Had the nose chopped a little bit, so surely can't get close enough to have a look, have a go up the inside into turn. But he's going to have a go anyhow. No, he's not. Yes, I am. No, I'm not. There we are. The debate was covered. And Okayama covered the corner as well. Trying to take the wider line to turn 11, but it's such a short straight down to turn 12. And as long as the car turns in, you don't go in too early into turn 12 and get the wrong line on the exit, so clearly waiting for a blast over the curbing. If you can get a better run down the start-finish straight, well, he's going to be presented with only one line at the bottom of the corner. Why is he not sitting right in the slipstream? Don't quite know. The Aston Martin now closes up. He's only going to be shown the outside line, but Okayama's done enough to cover him off on the inside. Has got to protect for one further lap, because the next time our race leader comes round, the checkered flag will be shown. So hard to drag our eyes away from this battle between Okayama and Hoshino for third place overall. I think Okayama's just got enough in hand, but can he block him off? Will there be better speed through the S's up towards the hairpin? This is a dive up the inside. It's surely going to work. Here comes the dive up the inside. Has he done any braking at all? Not a lot, diving deep, but Okayama couldn't cut back underneath. So, great move there from Hoshino. So the GT4 AM leader comes through, and our race leader comes through the final corner. Turn 13. Yesterday, the driver on the pit wall, Manabo Arido, stopped about there and then had to push the car all the way to the finish. The 35-second advantage out the window today. It was a 45-second advantage when they started the final lap, but Japan Cup champions in GT4 upset yesterday, exhausted yesterday, exultant and triumphant today. So very well done for the YZ team. Easy racing with BMW M Team Studi. Second place, having taken 3 GT4 wins in 3 starts, but yesterday's was a bit of a gimme, a lot of a gimme actually, but here we go with 2 corners to go. Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia will be through to the finish in second place overall. Really good pickings for the driver who kicked off, Seito Nonaka, and the driver who brought it home, the very, very enthusiastic Indonesian Haridama Manopo. First yesterday, second today, they'll take that. And third place in the background goes the Aston Martin. Big round of applause for Tatsuya Hoshino, because on the final lap, getting ahead of the Akaland Racing Toyota by small margins ahead of Masayoshi Okayama. Well, That's what's called fighting all the way to the finish. The McLaren is out of the race, so we've got 2 more cars to come through. The K-Mania Racing Porsche Cayman will end up a lap down, and we had a second visit to the pits for Risa Oguchi, because of course the bright pink Mercedes unfortunately was just a little short on its time at the pit stops, had to serve a penalty, and Risa Oguchi coming down the start-finish straight, and she's picked up her pace. At the start of the weekend she was 11-12 seconds off the pace. Today her best lap is 10 seconds down from by far the fastest lap of the race set by the number 39 Toyota. So in race trim, lap after lap, she was getting better, which is exactly what is required. The other thing that's required is enough fuel to get to the end of the race. Let's stop talking about the fuel now, because today they got it right, and it's victory for the number 50 BMW. They've been class all through the Japan Cup season, and they are the Japan Cup GT4 champions. It was an outside hope for K-Mania Racing, but today the number 718 could only finish 5th overall. So it wasn't their day today, but they rose the challenge, but eventually getting their form back, getting their mojo back, getting enough fuel in the tank to get to the finish, winning another race, another round. So full marks for the BMW crew. And great looking car, really just looks so wonderfully neutral around the circuit, and such a strong driver lineup. And Masaki Kano just so super consistent with his lap times. Assumed a lead at the pit stop, didn't have any success penalty because, well, frankly, yesterday they didn't have any success. And today, look, through the winner's arch they go, GT4 Japan. It's here on the map. So today, a happier place to find the crew of the number 50 BMW. Masaki Kano out, yep, double checking, fingers up in sign of victory to the photographers. And today Manabu Arido should come down with a little more energy than he had at the end yesterday after his pushing heroics. But today, here we are. 6 manufacturers started this GT4 race, a run of 3 different manufacturers up at the sharp end, because we've got BMW in first, Toyota in second, and with that last lap change around, Aston Martin in 3rd place overall. Here is the number 48 D-Station Racing Aston Martin arriving 3rd place overall with that fabulous charge and victory in the GT4 AM class today. So good runs. I think from small acorns, great trees grow. And I think that's how we can describe GT4 here in the Fanatec GT World Challenge in Asia. So helmet off, balaclava off, earplugs out. All things that suddenly make a driver feel marginally less as though they've been cooked. It's been a very, very hot day. Hot weekend after the typhoon blew in at the start of the week, which made life very humid indeed. But the weather's got better and better, and I think these GT4 drivers have thoroughly enjoyed their weekend, being able to race on their own turf, if you will, without the GT3 cars interrupting their flow, their pattern, and their battles. So Pirelli cap onto Masaki Kano's head, and a welcome suck of something cool and wet. And a little ice pack. Teams think of everything these days. So GT4, for the first time in the championship, they have had their own race and they've really enjoyed it. That was good fun yesterday. Different stirring of the pot today. Different winner. A car that could have won twice in 2 days has made it today at the second time of asking. So there, victory from Masaki Kano and Max Arido eventually by 44 seconds. Seito Nonaka and Haridamo Monopo, they came second for Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia, yesterday's surprise winning crew. And a real surprise today, Tatsuya Hoshino, building on the work of Kenji Hama to take the GT4 AM victory for D-Station Racing, with Aston Martin moving into 3rd ahead of Akilan Racing's Toyota Supra on the final lap, with Masayoshi Oyama just losing out in that battle. Nehiko Atsuka and Sho Kobayashi taking the 2nd place in GT4 round. They were the outside championship hopes today, but it was always going to be steep. And Comet Racing, they were the last finishers in 6th place overall, with the extra run through the pits for undercutting their pit stop time. And Kref Motorsport, their brand new McLaren Artura, 7th and last, and didn't get to finish with that overheating engine problem. But they will be back, and certainly the McLaren Artura will be in the mix in Japan and Southeast Asia next year, because it looked very, very promising on its debut. So a lot to discuss But I think we can say the field was small, but the field had a lot of fun, and a lot of the teams, not just teams here this weekend running GT3 cars, but teams all around Japan have been saying, and other parts of Asia, they would like to have these races again next year. So let's go down and join Amy Azar with the winners of our race. The winners from the number 50 BMW.
All right, gentlemen, we have the winners of today's race and also the Japan Cup champions. We are making our way to the front of the car, I guess. So, 菅野選手、本日の優勝、そしてジャパンカップチャンピオンとなりました。おめでとうございます。
ありがとうございます。いや
お気持ちを。
昨日の状況下から考えるともう今日しかないということでおいど先輩ともいろいろミーティングしながら来たんですけど、昨日うまくいってたはずが今日もうまくいきましたんで、なんとかチャンピオンになってよかったです。
おめでとうございます。So yeah, what they lost yesterday, they got it back today. So he's very, very happy, and he's also very happy that it didn't stop today. おいど選手、素晴らしいレースだったかと思います。ご自身もすごくプッシュして、ね、スプラとのバトルもありましたけれども、チャンピオンおめでとうございます。
ありがとうございます。ミッションクリアなんでね、チームにチャンピオンをプレゼントするのが我々のこうね、役目だったんで、今日はこれで決められてよかったです。はい。
たくさんお祝いしてください。おめでとうございました。So Orito said mission check, mission clear, since his mission was to give this as a present to the team. So he's very happy that they did this achievement. Back to you.
Thank you, Amy. And yesterday, of course, it was mission impossible when their car stopped, but satisfactory return for the 50 BMW M Team Studi team. They've looked great all season. They are the 2023 GT4 Japan Cup winners. And that was something they're aiming for. They've even seemingly got almost celebratory umbrellas down there and matching clothing as well in the typical standard BMW Motorsport colours. Car looks great, but some really good performances in and around that. Certainly Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia have shown they've got not one but two really good drivers, and Haridama Manopo, the driver from Indonesia, really gaining form, particularly through the course of this weekend, so he would have loved his racing. The surprise win yesterday for the pair, and for D-Station Racing, the third crew up at the end of the race with that last lap overtake, they'll have loved having a GT4 Vantage alongside their regular GT3 runner. So many things to discuss, but we're all set for the final podium of the fifth round of Fanatec GT World Challenge Asia, and for the first time it's a separate podium this weekend after a separate race for the GT4 runners, and the trophies are waiting for them up there. But good to see so much media attention down with the cars at the end of the race, a real hubbub. They'll turn their cameras upwards in a moment to the podium, and Amy Izawa should be up there to conduct as the master of ceremonies. But you can see it's been a hot weekend. It's been very humid here. You can still see the heat haze up and down the pit lane in the distance. But this was something new. This is a trial. It was a suggestion. And the team said, yes, please. And next year they will be out in force in GT4. And I think it's a massive, massive step forward, both for the GT3 runners and the GT4, to have their races separated. So a very, very good initiative. But advantage this weekend to the BMW M Team Studi team, because they got it right. They got it wrong yesterday by small margin, not enough fuel. Today they took victory, and in comfortable style. So the sun continues to beat down the drivers who did the second half of the race, still feeling very hot indeed. But the podium ceremony about to start. The fanfare rings out, and look down the mix of cars. The Toyota finished in second, the BMW first, and the Aston Martin in third place. So the end of the second race, the sun's still shining and waiting to bring them out onto the podium. This is the third place crew, Masayoshi Oyama and Ryohei Sakaguchi. There's Ryohei coming out, qualified on pole, just slightly defeated at the start of the race to go back to second place. Looked very competitive indeed. And second place, Seita Nonaka coming out, hands raised in front, already cap in place. Haridama Manopo, the driver from Indonesia for the Indonesian team. And up onto the top step, YZ Racing with BMW M Team Studi. The two drivers, Masaki Kano, who finished it off, and Manado Arido, who started today. The Japan Cup GT4 champions. And it seemed like a special celebration, a jet passing by with a fair bit of fanfare as well. And I'm sure Manabu said, that's for us. That's for our championship win. So the trophy is being presented by Kotaro Ikuta, the technical director of Dixel. So that's the third place crew. And this is obviously the Silver Am podium. Sorry, it's the overall podium. So there we have the top 3 runners in the Silver Am class. Hakiland Racing on the right in the blue overalls. Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia on the left in the black overalls and with the white two-tone blue and red overalls. The BMW Racing colours of YZ Racing with BMW M Team Studi, Masaki Kano and Manabo Arido. Not just winners today in the second race, but champions of the Japan Cup GT4 class. Trophies aloft, smiles on faces, bubbly waiting to be uncorked at the end of this meeting for these GT4 runners. And I think the bubbly will fly because it's been a very, very successful experiment. The numbers, of course, we would like to be up. We've already almost been guaranteed double the numbers for the start of next year. And I expect more beyond that because GT4 racing really provides a fabulous accompaniment to GT3. And the drivers really thoroughly enjoyed being able to be uninterrupted in their quest for glory. And in the end, winning by a very comfortable margin of 44 seconds. Masaki Kano and Manabu Arido, who's unfortunately just been blinded by some spray. But they've worked hard. It's been a hot, hot afternoon for these drivers in their office for the weekend. But I think successful for all 3 pairs of drivers up there. And some good racing in the mix there as well. So trophies aloft, smiles fixed on faces. It's been a thoroughly good afternoon of racing for all involved. Nice, clean racing, and some will have learnt a few more tricks of the trade. But the BMW crew, bear in mind, they started 5th in this race, and they got their way up to the front by dint of being 2 excellent drivers with a car that is very, very well sorted. A quick selfie for the pair, why not? You just won a championship, just won the trophies for winning here, but also the overall trophies for the championship as well will be in their cabinet by the end of this evening. And of course, the podium ceremonies are not over until they're over, and we'll have the GT4 AM podium coming up next. And again, all the drivers, it's very easy sometimes to look at a race and not think too much about the classes, but very early on we had a fabulous race in the first half between the 718 Czech Shop Kemania Racing Porsche with the driver who started, Nehiko Otsuka, who was just pulling up his zip to the top with the beard, and behind the driver who finished, Sho Kobayashi. They've really come on strong through the course of this season. They will take the second step on the podium. Only 2 cars in this class in the 7-car field, but with 3rd place overall with that last lap dash. D-Station Racing with their advantage. Tatsuya Hoshino and Kenji Hama coming out onto the podium, led out by Hoshino. Hama just popping up after him up onto the top step. They will have enjoyed that, the race and the chase to the finish. So again, welcoming back out the technical director of Dixel, that's Kotaro Ikuta, to hand out the trophies. For 2nd place to the man with the permanent smile on his face, Nehiko Otsuka. They've had a really good season. Czech Shop Kemania Racing and the young charger Sho Kobayashi. And then the trophies to the winners today. D-Station Racing, first to Tatsuya Hoshino, and Kenji Hama will get his next. And those will go in a cabinet. And of course, all these teams very much looking forward to the rest of this racing season, getting their plans together for next year as well. You can be sure of that. And getting ready, as always, to uncork the champagne with a bit of extra fizz. The joker in the pack, Nehiko Asuka, but thoroughly enjoying his racing, and good to have a showman on board as well. But for D-Station Racing, it was a slow start to this race, seemed to be falling away at the back, but it was a case of being sensible from Kenji Hama, getting the most out of his tyres, came charging through. Little mistake from Otsuka, almost a spectacular one coming out of the final corner, got a bit loose, and the lead changed, then the pit stops happened, and then Tatsuya Hoshino just kept on advancing, and I thought he did well to get to 4th, but getting into 3rd was fabulous on the final lap. But our GT4 AM finishers, the top 2 positions, are really just having fun here at Okayama International Circuit. They have had a great weekend. These two individual GT4 races have been a major success, and it's great to see their joy. And let's see how many we get to play in GT4 in 2024. It's been fun. Join us again next time. And now we have the podium ceremony for the victors in the Japan Cup GT4 category. They hoped to do it yesterday. They have done it today. Masaki Kano and behind him Max Cerrido. They won the race today. They lost the race yesterday. But anyhow, in the final reckoning, they almost needed to turn up today to win, but they did it in total style. They won the race as well for good effect, and they won it by a very, very tidy margin. Some great battling behind them, but they are deserved winners of the first Japan Cup GT4 Championship. So well done. A championship held across 4 rounds in the middle of Fanatec GT World Challenge Asia, starting in Fuji, then to Suzuka, then Motegi 3 weekends ago. And now here at Okayama International Circuit, they wrapped it up. Slightly made hard work of it, but by a little error yesterday in the refueling department. A bit made for drama. It's gone viral around the world, the slowing car, the push to the finish. But today, they did it with power to spare. And these are the champions, the Japan Cup GT4 for 2023. Well done to the crew. So, in so many ways, it's good to have that sort of extra story to knit into the mix, but they've been absolute class across the meetings at Fuji, Suzuka, Motegi, and now here at Okayama International Circuit. Wrapped up the season in the GT4 Japan Cup with the overall championship, so well done to the pair of them. Away from Arido from the top step, but let's remember what happened today. Let's take a look back at the highlights. 2 Toyotas on the front row, and it was led away by the Akiland Racing number 71, and at the wheel of that Supra was Ryohei Sakaguchi. Everyone behind stayed in order, got very close indeed. The McLaren taking a look up the inside of the second of the Toyotas through the opening corner, but on the opening lap you could tell that Seita Nonaka in the number 39 Toyota was not going to be content to stay in second position. McLaren going very well at the start of the race from Masataka Inoue, and side by side with the bright pink Mercedes. Then suddenly a bit of a moment. That was the lead change in GT4 AM. A tiny mistake from K-Mania Racing for Nehiko Otsuka. And then, of course, the Aston Martin pounced and moved up to position. Then we came to the pit stops. So it was going to be a long time in there for the McLaren. It had an overheating issue, which meant it didn't go out for the second half of the race. But success penalties yesterday meant longer pit stops for the 2 Toyotas, flashing through into the lead went the BMW number 50, and then this fabulous battle between Haridamo Manopo working so hard against Masayoshi Oyama in the Akiland version, the yellow, white and black version. Eventually the gap would open out between the pair of them, and a handsome second place for Manopo and the Toyota Gazoo Racing Indonesia crew. But number 50, no problems today after all the dramas at the finish yesterday, sweeping through the final corner with power today. 44-second victory completed by Masaki Kano, and with it even time to go wave to his crew on the pit wall. That was the clinching, not just of today's race, but GT4 Japan Cup for 2023. What a great way to end, with a story, with smiles, with trophies, with champagne. That's it for GT4 from Okayama.